You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hi, we are Enterprise-Splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you. I'm Jamie, and these are my co-hosts Maria.
Hello.
And Bill.
Hello.
Today we are going to be talking about the Star Trek Enterprise episode Oasis. However, I'm the only person here who's actually watched it, so it's my job to explain to my co-hosts what happened on the episode. But before we get to that, I have a very important apology that I need to make.
Oh.
Computer, will you play the relevant clip from last week? When Travis went to sickbay to see how the alien guy that Phlox was helping was doing, the alien was laying... Travis went to sickbay. It was Travis.
Travis was in that episode?
Yes. Travis went to sickbay to ask Phlox how the alien was doing. And the alien guy was laying on a table unconscious and had a blanket over him, and it looked like he was nude below the blanket. And Travis walks into sickbay, lifts up the blanket, and looks under it.
Do not remember that.
I don't remember that scene at all.
I swear that this happened. As you heard in that clip, I said that there was a scene where Travis walks into sickbay, lifts up, peeks under a blanket of an unconscious nude alien. I insisted that it was Travis, even though Maria and Bill were like, no, Jamie, are you sure? I don't think that's right. I think it's Trip. I was so sure. Guys, but here's the thing. When I was saying I was so sure, I was so sure it was Trip. I was just saying the word Malcolm. Or Travis.
No, you were saying... It's fine.
I was saying
interchangeable.
Travis. I meant Trip. They have the same name, is the problem. Anyways, we should probably get into this week's episode.
Yeah, probably.
Now that Blanket Gate has been brought to a close.
Last week, Bill told us about the episode Acquisition. Maria and I were finally able to watch it. I know that I have a bunch of thoughts on the episode, which mostly have to do with the costuming. But Maria, why don't you go first? How angry are you at Bill for misleading us by telling us that Trip would be in his underwear for half the episode and not clarifying that it would include a shirt?
Yeah, I had some concerns about that. I felt like we had been misled a little bit. However, the thing that I feel like was even more obvious was how short and tight his underpants were. They were so short and tight. I was sort of expecting not boxers, but like longer shorts. That shit was short. They were some short shorts.
Yeah, and there was a very visible bulge.
A very visible bulge. And my notes, I have my notes here that I just have a note that says his underpants are quite short and quite tight. And then the next note is, I'm okay with it.
We saw this outfit before in the episode where Trip gets pregnant, where he pops out of the MRI device.
Oh, he has the same outfit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just their standard undergarments.
I mean, Malcolm wore the shorts in the last time we saw him in Decon, but he had no shirt. When you say underwear, I'm assuming there is no shirt. And when he had a shirt on, I was so disappointed.
Well, a t-shirt is technically underwear. I mean,
yes, technically he's in like an undershirt, but I just feel like you saying underwear, I thought there was going to be no shirt, and then he had a shirt, and I was disappointed. I was let down.
And this shall henceforth be called Underpantsgate. I will say that, remember, we kept saying how great it was that Bill kept, every time we talked about Trip, was like, Trip, who is still in his underpants. And yes, I appreciated you telling us that, but also you had to say that. Like, every time we cut to Trip, you were like, oh, he's still in his underpants. Jesus. It was so awkward.
I stand by my statement.
This sounds terrible, but other than the minor human trafficking component of this,
Some light human trafficking.
Setting aside the light human trafficking side of it, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was funny. I thought the Ferengi were really funny. I think part of it was that Bill described it so well. The scene in sickbay where they're throwing shit into the bags, I was rolling. Like, I had to pause to keep laughing so that I wouldn't miss anything. I laughed so hard when they're throwing shit into those big sacks. It's great.
When they had there was like food, like they were with the pecan pie. They just put the pecan pie in the bag with all the broken glass that's already in there.
It was amazing. It was just amazing. Also, going back to what we were talking about with the Travis and Trip confusion, you know, in the scene at the very beginning where they're kind of panning over the ship and everybody is passed out, there were like 3 times where I was like, oh, that's Trip laying down. What the heck? And it wasn't. It was just some random crew member, but like,
it's just
impossible to tell. Right? Random white
Trip.
dude. Probably Trip.
I would like to say that I have never been so sure of Bill's heterosexuality as I was in the fact that you did not even mention what Archer was wearing this episode.
Oh my God.
Like, Bill,
Agreed.
you do not have a bisexual bone in your body, or you would have, it would have stood out to you that Archer, he had his like regular uniform unzipped down to the waist and a black button-down undershirt that was partially unbuttoned, like you could see his chest hair. And because he was moving supplies around, he was so sweaty.
So sweaty. My note for that is literally, sweaty Archer is greater than underpanted Trip.
I have never been so happy to see Archer. I'm never happy to see Archer. I was so, every time Archer, I was like, thank you, like more scenes with Archer, please.
One, I was entirely distracted by Trip in his underpants, and 2, you are describing this as if it is a diet soda commercial from the 1990s where the guy is doing exercise and all the female secretaries are staring at him out a window. That's
basically what this was.
I like Scott Bakula a lot. I don't think this made no impression on me at all, so fair point made.
So my only real, other than the human trafficking, which I'm just not going to even cover because whatever.
It was a pile of women though, right?
It was a pile of women. It was awful.
Yeah, I just don't want to think about any of that.
Yeah, it was just like, I would just rather put that aside. I have 2 main issues. One was, and it worked out really well because I really liked Archer in this episode, but Archer figured out the Ferengi way too well. Way too fast. He does not pick up on things fast. Like, Archer just doesn't. It takes Archer a long time to figure shit out. He figured them out immediately. And it was great that he did, and it worked out and it made for a great story, but it was out of character, I think.
Do you think that might be because this era of Star Trek is so much closer to our time? Because when they show up in TNG, it's like they have difficulty even understanding what the Ferengi are after.
I think it's just because we know Ferengi so well.
Yeah, that's also part of it.
They're just, the writers are kind of, even though Archer has not met them, I think they're kind of putting on him the fact that we already know it. I don't know. I just think it's bad writing, honestly.
Like I said, I think writers tend to do this where they kind of make a little weird plot device to be able to get the story in that they want. And I get that, but it was a little jarring to me because normally Archer plays it a lot more dumb. Like, he just doesn't get things that fast, and he got that shit immediately.
Yeah, Archer is definitely more naive idealist. I will grant you that.
Yeah, for sure.
The Ferengi in the first scene when they had the gas mask, I really love the detail that instead of the gas mask going around the back of your head, they went around their ears.
Yeah, it clipped onto their ears.
I just thought that was like a really fun little detail from the costume designer.
I agree. I loved T'Pol in this. I love the scene where Trip wakes her up. She was brilliant in that scene. She was so subtle and so, like, you just put it all together. She did such a good job.
Some comments about the Ferengi fashion. Bill, you told us they were dressed like space hobos, but I actually think they were dressed more like space pirates. I think their costumes were actually pretty interesting.
Okay.
You could tell that their clothes was expensive, like had been expensive at one time, but now was like all shabby just from use. Like it looked like expensive fabrics. Jeffrey Combs was in like a full leather getup. One of the guys had a fancy blue jacket that was in the same style as a lot of Quark's jackets.
Yeah.
And then one of the Ferengi was wearing full head to toe red velvet.
That was Clint Howard as Muke. Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, he was great. I have a costume thing as well. Trip finally gets a jumpsuit, but it's not his jumpsuit.
No.
And it's slightly small for him, I think. At least like that's what it seemed like. But it wasn't that, like it fit him. It was obviously fit him fine. But because they sort of made that thing that it was a little small for him, all I thought about for the second half of the episode was the wedgie that he had to have. Because when you have a jumpsuit that's too small for you, you have a wedgie. There is no doubt.
As somebody who made the Enterprise uniform, and when I was testing the test version of it, I did not try to sit down in it. And then I made the final one and realized I was going to have to sit down. Yes, you do get a wedgie when it's too small. So one cool thing that I noticed, I also created the same version of the undershirt. So the one that I made looks just like the one that Archer was wearing. And by doing that, I learned something kind of interesting about it that you can see in this episode. Since Archer has the top couple buttons undone and it's like folded over, if you look closely, you'll see that the under part of the shirt where it's folded over looks very different than a typical button down. If you grab a button down that you own and you look at the inside, when the top is folded over, you can see visible seams. So you have the seam behind the button facing and you have the seam for the collar. But in Archer's shirt in this episode, if you look closely at it, there's no seams underneath it. And that's because it's made with like a very large facing that covers up all the seams that would be there. So it's extremely unusual. I know we heard some of the lore back when we had Celix on the episode about Star Trek costuming, how in the original series they didn't want to have any like
Visible
seams or any
yeah.
visible seams that you see, because they wanted to make it, and like no zippers or buttons, because they wanted to make it like magic Star Trek technology was putting the clothes together or holding the clothes together. So to me, I see this as the costume designer doing something a little bit in between.
Yeah, that's
being
cool.
like, okay, we do have zippers and buttons, but we do have some of the technology to hide seams. It was just something I noticed in this episode, and I thought it was just a little detail that was pretty interesting.
That's very cool. Are you guys ready for my big question, or the answer that I have for you guys, which is, why are the Ferengis on this episode, and how does that work with the canon of The Next Generation?
It makes no sense. Sorry, it just doesn't.
I have an answer that you're going to be real mad about. I researched this, you guys. They never say the word Ferengi. They never identify them as Ferengi.
Are you kidding me? So
That is the
pick
answer.
up on that.
And here are the reasons that is some bullshit. First of all, they see the Ferengi. They know what the Ferengi look like. Okay, in Next Generation, they never, at that point in that episode where they first meet the Ferengi, which, by the way, I did go back and watch, they didn't know what the Ferengi looked like, but they called them like Yankee traders or pirates, basically. They
I
knew
feel like you
that
could put the
whole
descriptions
thing.
together
The Ferengi
and figure out that
about,
it's probably the same.
Yeah, the Ferengi in this episode talk about the rules of acquisition, which, come on. And then at the end of this episode, like, they spent what seemed like at least a day or two, like, in control of the Ferengis. Like, when they kind of took the thing back over and they made the Ferengis put everything back. Like, you're not going to ask them about their planet and about where they come from? You're not, like, maybe they're not going to tell them, but that was weird.
Yeah,
like, I feel like
I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I feel like that one dude would have basically told Archer everything. So, yeah, it's some bullshit.
It almost
And,
seems like they made it up after the fact.
Rick Berman apparently has said it was a huge mistake. We were idiots. We shouldn't have done it. Like he admits that they shouldn't have done it.
In terms of mistakes that they have made with Enterprise, I would actually say this is a pretty small one.
I was going to say,
comparatively.
like, honestly, I have enjoyed this episode more than any other. I think I really do. It really was fun. But
my hot take on that is, first of all, you guys know my feelings on the Ferengi in general. If they want to make this the first chronological meeting of the Ferengi, that's fine. Just because the TNG episode is so lame. Like, I don't feel
This is
it
way better
takes,
than that TNG episode.
I don't think it takes anything away from that episode. It's not like this is an episode where they're going to, like, the Enterprise finds the Botany Bay with Khan on it and then sends it on its way.
yeah. No, and I did, like I said, I did watch that TNG episode.
You fool!
Oh,
You fool!
Why?
It was fine. There were far worse TNG episodes, dude. There really were.
There
was
were, but that
not-
one was painful.
Well, it wasn't that painful. Like, I didn't find it all that painful. But I wrote down exactly what Picard says about all they know about the Ferengi, which is a life form which, discounting rumor, we know almost nothing about. Ferengi tech is estimated to be generally equal to our own. So they really, there was that discounting rumor thing. So I just wonder. I know that there's no link to it, obviously, because that Next Generation episode was made long before Enterprise. But I just wonder if they were kind of like glomming on to that. Like, there are all these rumors about it. But I was sort of expecting there to be some sort of a reset button that said, oh, this has to be super secret. We can't talk about this. This has to go directly to Section 13, which doesn't exist yet. But you know what I mean? I was
Division
just... Division
31.
Whatever.
What's Section 13
Guys,
then?
Can we just move on and never talk about Ferengi again?
No.
Until we get to the Enterprise episode 200 years from now, we will discuss. That's why. That's the end of the episode. Archer's like, these aliens were lame. Let's not put them in the log.
Let's never talk about these assholes again.
Yes, hello. Let's talk about the Flopcast,
Every week, we give podcast listeners a chance to come and join us in Chicken Town.
where we talk about Saturday morning cartoons, comics and science fiction conventions, music and concert reports, 70s and 80s pop culture, and for no good reason, chickens.
Boy, we're weird.
Oh, we are ridiculous.
We're proud members of the ESO network, and you can find us at flopcast.net.
It is time to talk about this week's episode. Computer, what episode will we be talking about this week?
Oasis. The crew is directed to a barren planet where a derelict ship may be salvageable for supplies, but the crew quickly learns that rumors about the shipwreck being haunted may be true.
It is now time for 2 truths and a lie.
Ooh.
I'm going to tell you 2 truths and 1 lie about the episode, and you can guess which is the lie. Are you guys ready?
Well, I am ready.
My whole life has been but prelude to this moment.
Statement 1. T'Pol gives Tucker shit about getting impregnated that one time.
Ooh, callback,
That's
okay.
real plausible.
Statement 2. Archer gives Malcolm shit for solving every problem by blowing stuff up.
Wait, so one of these
So
has to be
meta.
true. This is okay.
2 of them are true. 2 truths,
Well,
1
no,
lie.
one of
But
these
one of these
statements
two.
thus far. Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna get a callback either way. Okay.
Statement 3. Hoshi gives Travis shit about believing in ghosts.
Oh, man.
So is T'Pol giving I wrote Tucker. Is T'Pol
Trip.
giving Travis Trip? Sorry, God damn it.
God damn it.
Tucker was right, actually.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's-
but we never call him
But we
that.
never
It's
call
weird
him
to call
Tucker.
that.
But that was correct, technically.
It was correct.
Do we need to
T'Pol
pause while
gives-
Jamie goes back and watch the episode again?
T'Pol gives Trip shit about getting impregnated that one time. Archer gives Malcolm shit about solving every problem by blowing stuff up. Or Hoshi gives Travis shit about believing in ghosts. Who is giving who shit about what?
Oh boy. This is a real coin flip. I don't think that Archer would give Malcolm shit about blowing stuff up because I think he's into it.
That's my guess too. I think it's the Archer giving Malcolm shit.
Just because it's so random, because I don't feel like we've only seen, there's only been like one ghosty episode that's so random that Hoshi would do. So that sounds like it's probably true. I think that the lie is that T'Pol gives Trip shit about being, although it's probably true. That's my pick.
Oh, your pick is T'Pol giving Trip shit about being pregnant.
Yeah,
Okay.
you think that's
Travis
the
shit.
lie?
That's my pick for the lie. Yep.
Okay.
My pick for the lie is Archer gives Malcolm shit for blowing stuff up. The Travis
no, you're right. I'm sorry. I skipped a groove there.
We're so bad at this, guys. Are we actually the crew of the Enterprise?
You know what? I'll stick with it. I'll just for the sake of argument, I'll stick with it. I'll stick with my initial pick. I'm going to stick to my guns.
I think it's completely plausible that Travis believes in ghosts, and Hoshi would definitely give him shit about that. Like, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Cold open. Archer, Trip, and T'Pol are eating a meal with an alien merchant named Damar. He's wearing a shirt that's made of fur, and he's got this like whitish skin with bluish veins. It's giving blue cheese. Okay. And he's got weird bumpy pits on his forehead and like something that sort of looks like gills. But the most notable thing about this merchant is that he's being played by Tom Bergeron. Are you guys familiar?
Oh, nice. Yeah. I did not know Tom Bergeron ever did any Star Trek.
Apparently, this episode, Cold Open, we will not see him after the Cold Open. I'm so sorry. But he does play a cool alien. For those who don't know, he was the host of Hollywood Squares and then later the host of Dancing with the Stars for many years. Mm-hmm. He was actually fired from Dancing with the Stars in 2019 because he criticized the fact that they cast Sean Spicer.
Yeah, I actually Googled him just now just to be sure because I always get Tom Bergeron and Tom Berenger, I think, mixed up. There's two.
That's exactly who I was thinking.
And I always get them confused. I wanted to check who it was, but when I Googled it, that was one of the first things that came up was he said he would never return to the show because they cast Sean Spicer on Dancing with the Stars.
Also, he once sang a Sinatra song on The Masked Singer while dressed as a taco.
Yeah.
So
that
those are
show
your Tom
is so
Bergeron
fucking
facts.
weird, man. I love it. It's so weird.
How amazing would it be if he was a taco merchant?
So he's a merchant. He says he has Triaxian silk for sale, at which point Trip looks over at T'Pol and says, I bet you'd look good in Triaxian silk.
Oh.
Which, remember when Andy was on the show and she was just like, where is HR? That's what I was thinking. Just where's HR? Call HR. Come on.
How much innuendo is he laying into this? Does he just say?
That's my question. Is it a cute, friendly kind of thing, or is it a weird and creepy thing?
If my coworker tells me like you would look good in that silk,
I'm not disputing that.
Mm-mm.
No, I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying, like, they are setting these two up to end up together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
clearly.
my question is it cute and flirty, or is it like creepy? Because I really don't want Trip to be creepy.
Flirty way. It still is just weird because they're having this business meeting.
Yeah, that's weird.
Clearly.
Fucking. Where is HR?
Look, just the way I read all of my lines here, every time I'm trying to put some extra sauce on a line read to get a reaction out of you guys, is Trip saying, you'd look good in Taraxian silk, or he's saying, you'd look good in Taraxian silk.
I mean, for the former, it's very like matter of fact, like, oh, you would look good in that. But it's still just, it comes off as so weird in the middle of what feels like a business meeting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd look good is like a weird thing. Like, wouldn't you like something like that? Or that seems like something you might like would be okay.
Yeah,
but
that
would
be different.
Good
but
is a little creepy.
Yeah, you look good. I hate it. Archer tells Damar that they're only interested in engineering supplies, but Damar says that unfortunately he only sells exotic goods.
Then why are we even talking to you?
They invited him to like a whole dinner, guys, before realizing he doesn't actually have anything they want. But he does tell them that around 2 days away, there is a crashed ship that could be salvaged and has a lot of the supplies that Archer's looking for. Archer then offers to trade him coffee beans for the location of this salvage, but Damar says he's not going to tell them because he's just looking out for their own safety. You see, he visited the ship and discovered that it was haunted. Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh. Are there candles on the ship?
There's a candle on the ship. Damn it, you beat me to the joke I was going to make.
And theme song, which brings us to our Diane Warren update of the week.
Yay.
I have mentioned previously that there was a Broadway musical currently in the works about Diane Warren's life featuring all of her music. I do not have any more details about that. But I did learn that there's two
Thanks for
musicals.
The update, Jamie. Now back to the episode.
That is all. I will be taking no further questions.
I have learned, though, that there are two musicals right now playing that are featuring her music. The first one is Burlesque the Musical, which is playing in the West End in London. And yes, it is based on the movie Burlesque.
The Cher movie? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's being produced by Christina Aguilera. It stars Todrick Hall. And one of the songs featured in that musical is the Diane Warren song that she wrote for the movie, You Haven't Seen the Last of Me, which Cher sung in the movie.
Oh, God. Truly the most wildly and accurately named movie. The movie is called Burlesque. It is not a burlesque show. The movie should be called Drag Show, except all the performers are actually women.
Which honestly sounds amazing.
It does sound amazing, doesn't it?
I would see that.
I've never seen this movie,
seen it
and I really want to. Like, I feel like it's like a big hole in my cultural /
I've
gay
never seen
culture
it either.
knowledge. Secondly, there is another musical currently playing off Broadway in New York called Titanic. I have been absolutely dying to see this movie. Titanic. Sorry, not movie, musical. Right. It is a raunchy camp jukebox musical parody of Titanic, but if Celine Dion was on the ship with Jack and Rose.
Oh shit, I would watch the shit out of that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so I was in New York recently and I wanted to see this, but my husband came with me and he'd never even seen Titanic. And I was just like, I can't bring him to this. But I've been kind of dying to see this. So it features music by Celine Dion. And the thing about Celine Dion is she famously doesn't write her own music. There's like a couple songs I think she's written, but for the most part, she is a singer. She does not write her songs. So in order to get the rights for the music, they can't go to Celine Dion and just have her agree to the musical. They have to go to each of the writers of each of the songs that they want. And so some of the writers, for example, Max Martin, who wrote a lot of Celine Dion's biggest hits, did not give permission. So like a lot of her biggest songs are not in this musical. But you know who did give permission? Miss Diane Warren. Diane Warren wrote the Celine Dion song If You Asked Me To, and it is in the musical Titanic.
I wonder if Jim Steinman gave permission, because he's written a couple of Celine Dion songs too.
Oh, I'm not sure. You'll have to.
All Coming Back is Jim Steinman, and there's a couple others.
Well, you might be thinking to yourself, this musical sounds great. I would love to see it, but I don't live in New York, and so I guess I'm never going to get to see it.
That was exactly what I was thinking, Jim.
Me too. Absolutely.
This musical has also opened recently in London, Sydney, Toronto, and Montreal.
All right, I'm going to London. I'm going to London, and I'm going to see both these shows.
But also, in March, it's going to be opening in Chicago, where I live.
Yay!
So even though I missed it in New York, it will be opening in Chicago. I am so excited, you guys. I will be going to see it. Maria, you should come visit. We could go see it together.
Well, I'm going to try. That'd be great.
Please tell me that the plot is the world's largest ocean liner collides with the world's largest French-Canadian singer of ballads.
Honestly, I think that may actually be the plot.
Yeah, I think that might be what's
They
happening.
lift the binoculars and they see Celine out in the middle of Celine Dion, dead ahead.
I think that the musical is like Celine Dion is on the Titanic with Jack and Rose.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Oh god!
Amazing!
Amazing!
This is an amazing update, Jamie.
Yeah,
what a world this podcast has opened for me.
The weirdest part is, despite the fact that there are 2 musicals currently, and neither are on Broadway, but still, 2 musicals, Diane Warren has not mentioned it on any of her social media. She hasn't mentioned either of them, despite having songs in it. So I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. I found Titanic because I was already wanted to see Titanic, and Burlesque I found because I was looking for information on the other musical, and then came across this.
I think we've covered this before. Does she have the Tony? Does she have the T in EGOT?
No, I actually checked, and she does not.
Okay.
Look, Diane Warren is not getting an EGOT. I love her. I don't, even if she gets an Oscar, I think that she only has a Grammy.
Okay.
We open on the bridge. They have now found the ship. So apparently the merchant did eventually accept coffee beans for the location of the ship.
He literally paid him in beans.
Yeah, they paid him in coffee beans. It's an exotic good.
Sure.
Janeway would never have made that deal. She was all about the beans.
Never in a million years.
So they scan the ship and they don't see any life signs, but they do see a lot of the supplies that they can use, just like the merchant said. So they decide they're going to head down. Travis is like, is that really a good idea? And Hoshi's like, oh, what, you afraid? You think it's really haunted? And he's like, I don't know, guys. Like, there could be dead bodies down there.
Or maybe looting a ship with dead people on it is, like, not cool?
Not really cool. Not ideal. A good ghost.
I feel like if you are out in space and you need, like, engineering supplies to keep your engine running, I feel like it's okay to salvage stuff from
Oh,
the
that's
ship
what it
with
was.
dead bodies.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misinterpreted what you said earlier, that they were looking for engineering stuff. I didn't realize they needed supplies for repairs. I thought they were just looking for new technology. I'm sorry. That was my take on that.
It's supplies for repairs and stuff. Okay. They say that they're sort of running low on things to fix the hull and stuff like that.
Maybe they should go back to Earth.
I mean, to be fair, like their whole, like that one episode, like half of their hull ended up on that moon or whatever. And so it was so bad that Trip and Malcolm thought they were all dead. So they probably do need some repairs, to be fair.
You know who went back to starbases frequently? Kirk and Picard.
Yeah, you know. But there were more star bases for Kirk and Picard to get to. There were no star
totally
bases
different.
here.
Like, this is Wild West out here. Like, there's no star bases. The star bases seem to have mostly been built by the Federation, and the Federation doesn't even exist yet.
That's why I keep saying this feels... The comparison for me is so much more closer to Voyager than to any other Star Trek show, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. They don't have that much support. They have to go scavenge and make sense.
They can't go all the way back to Earth every single time they need some supplies like that. So that's why they're like getting to know some local merchants and stuff.
Right.
So the away team is Archer, Trip, T'Pol, and Travis. They go down to the ship. Yeah, Travis is there.
For real is on an away mission? Good for Travis.
Nice.
Yeah, but literally the first thing that happens is they're like, let's split up. Archer and Travis go off together. We never hear from them again. Oh. And then T'Pol and Trip go the other way, and we follow them. All of them are wearing these jackets that I don't think we've seen before. Mm-hmm. They are blue and have the division stripes, very, very similar to the windbreakers, but they're thicker and they have like a quilted pattern on them.
Oh, all right.
And T'Pol is wearing like a brown wrap jacket thing, presumably over her usual uniform.
Do you mean it's like wrapped around her, or it's like something that a rapper would wear?
It's like a wrap shirt, a wraparound shirt.
Something that a rapper would wear.
I'm picturing like a huge, one of those huge padded, like quilted things.
She has a clock hanging off of her neck.
That would be amazing.
That'd be incredible.
She's wearing a ball cap that's turned like 45 degrees on her head.
So much. I want that so much. Oh, God. Okay.
So we're following T'Pol and Trip, who are going to engineering to look for supplies. They're walking around in the dark. They've got flashlights. There's some spooky music playing. Not like in the show, but for like to set the mood.
That would be weird as hell. You get on actually, that would be the creepiest thing. You get on an abandoned ship and there's still music.
There's this creepy music.
T'Pol turns to Trip and says, "Can you turn that off?" And he pulls up his sensitive. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Rattle chains, chains.
Like Bluetooth speaker.
Sorry, I just had my Halloween's LP playing, and I don't know why I did that.
Well, in fact, T'Pol thinks she hears something, but the scanners aren't showing anything. Trip tells her she must have imagined it, and T'Pol replies, Vulcans don't imagine things. Which Trip scoffs at. Trip is like, come on, like, you're just, like, getting a little scared. Like, you're just a little freaked out and imagining things that aren't there.
Like microsingularities.
Yeah.
So she lets this go. They start to look at some, I think, dilithium crystals. And then as they're looking at this, T'Pol sees a reflection in the machinery of a face behind her. She turns around and there's nothing there.
This is such a cool, spooky, like, Halloween episode.
I know that we are recording a couple days before Halloween.
Hear it sometime in
December. But you will hear it
probably.
in December.
The spookiest holiday of all, Christmas. About a man who came back from the dead.
That's fair. There are zombies.
She tells Trip there's someone there, and Trip is very skeptical.
We talked about this a couple of episodes ago. Like, I hate the trope of somebody sees some weird shit and nobody believes them, even though they see weird shit literally every day. Drives me crazy.
What if T'Pol said, I saw a sexy woman who turned into a slug?
Right?
Well, lucky for you, Maria, they do not keep going with this.
Good.
Because basically, as soon as Trip starts to be like, oh, I don't know, and go and like accuse her of imagining things again, they both see a human-shaped shadow appear to run by.
I really wanted you to say, as soon as he says that, he gets eaten by a ghost. Never see him again.
T'Pol and Travis try to run away, but they run away in place, and we hear the bongos sound.
The shadow appeared to like run sort of around a corner, so they both run and chase it around the corner, but when they get there, there's just a dead end.
Ooh. By the way, that means that Porthos is Scooby-Doo. Does that mean we get to see Porthos?
Oh, sure.
They're looking around at this wall, trying to figure out where this creature went. T'Pol removes a wall panel and they can go through the wall. Once they're on the other side of this wall, they find themselves in a arboretum, or like I think they call it the aeroponics bay. Mm-hmm. So there's like plants everywhere. And remember, the sensors said there were no life signs. T'Pol says that there's a dampening field in this part of the ship, and that's what hid the plant life from her sensors.
Interesting. But there's like living plants in there, like they're all pretty.
Yeah, it's like
refined.
a garden, like a indoor ship garden.
Cool.
As Trip is exploring through the thick plants, he turns a corner and sees a woman. She's in her like mid to late 20s. She's got a blonde pixie cut. She looks mostly human, but she has some scaly looking patches by her temples. She is looking at him with a comically surprised look on her face. Guys, her eyes are so wide. It is so funny. I just, like, you can't help but laugh when you see her because her eyes are so wide. And she's just staring at him in surprise.
She's wearing a pork pie hat that shoots off the top of her head.
Trip is a little flustered and he just says, hi. So good first contact there. Mm-hmm. She freaks out and runs off. Trip and T'Pol then run after her. They chase her into the next room, and as soon as they enter the next room, they are then greeted by about 15 of these same aliens who all have phase pistols pointed at them.
Oops.
Uh-oh.
Dun, dun, dun. Commercial.
Dun, dun, dun.
So come back from commercial break, and the full crew is now there, and they're just like chatting with the aliens. So no one was like taken hostage or anything.
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay.
There are 4 aliens that we actually get to know in this episode. The first is the captain. He's an older man named Kalan. The second is Liana. She's the girl with the pixie cut. The third is her mother, which is an older woman. And finally, we have Liana's father, who's also the chief engineer. And we actually hear the chief engineer speak before we see him. And the second I heard his voice, I gasped because, guys, It is René Aubernjonois.
Ah.
Odo from DS9.
I love him.
He's gruffy. He's got like a beard, and he is playing the chief engineer and the father of that lady alien.
I love him.
We never get this character's name. I'm just gonna call him the engineer. One other just little detail I want to mention is that all of the aliens are wearing this clothing that looks very much like something you would see on DS9. It will have the top and the bottom will be slightly different colors, and it will have like a geometric line horizontally across the chest. It looks like these are right out of
DS9.
Deep Space Nine.
Cool.
So I do think that that's a little nod to it.
Sure.
The aliens say that 3 years ago they were attacked by raiders and they crashed. They never sent out any distress signals, and they set up the dampening field in order to hide because they were afraid that the raiders that attacked them might still be after them.
Sorry, how many years ago did this happen?
3 years.
3 years.
Archer is immediately like, well, we'd be happy to take you all home. We could fit all of you on the Enterprise. And the alien captain is like, you do realize that our world is like a year away.
At warp?
It is not made clear. Same earlier when the merchant said, oh, the crash is 2 days away. I would think all of these aliens have slightly different warp technologies that go at different speeds. So it's weird that they do everything by saying how long it would take when presumably it could be different.
Well, they have dilithium, so apparently they have a warp drive.
Yeah, and Trip says that he can fix their ship. The engineer is skeptical and says he's already tried and it's not possible. But Archer insists that with the right resources that they have on the Enterprise, they could definitely get it working again.
But they are low on resources as is. Like, you can't. Now we're going to give more. Like, what about all the shit you need?
Oh, that's never coming back, Maria. There's
There's
so
a project
you know.
manager on the Enterprise who's just tearing her hair out.
Is this like the Twilight Zone episode where the people have crashed on the planet and they've survived because one person was keeping them all together, and now that person doesn't want them to be rescued because he's been the god of this planet?
I guess we'll find out, Bill.
We'll find out.
So later on, Trip is in engineering. He's still in the dark. Like everything's dark. He's got his flashlight and he's sort of like leaning over and he's like working on stuff with his flashlight in the dark. It's a little bit weird. And then that girl from earlier shows up, but she just stares at him wide-eyed. So Trip starts to try to talk to her. He's sort of like talking, flirting with her, but she just continues to stare at him. So he finally realizes she's not going to say anything, and he just restarts working. Meanwhile, she is still just staring at him, watching him work. And then suddenly she blurts out, "Don't touch that!" Because apparently he is moments away from electrocuting himself.
Oh, Trip.
It's an alien system.
I know, I get that. It's just weird. Wouldn't Odo, like, have to, like, explain some shit to...
Well, she says that they rerouted power from the
they moved stuff
engine
around. Okay.
to the computer core, which we'll see later, which runs all their ship systems. Because of that reroute, I got the feeling that things were a little hacked together and like wires weren't really where they were supposed to be.
And so does it seem like she was there specifically because of that? Because she wanted to make sure, like, they wanted to make
Maria,
sure...
she was there to stare at Trip.
Oh. Is he in his underpants?
No.
Because, I mean, Trip fully dressed is not that impressive.
Ooh, burn.
He's no Archer.
Phaser blast detected. Phaser blast detected.
Malcolm has entered the chat.
Let's reverse this situation. T'Pol is working on a system and some guy is just staring at her.
Yeah, but Archer is clearly like he's acting very flattered by the attention.
Oh, it's Archer who's working on. Okay,
No,
I'm sorry.
it is Trip.
It's Trip.
God damn it! That's not even a T name, Jamie.
It's so hard to get.
And then Liana's mother suddenly shows up and tells Liana to stop bothering him. Trip says he doesn't mind, but her mother insists, and so Liana leaves.
Trip's all like, "This woman just saved my ass." Like,
Yeah,
what
right,
are you?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no,
first
he
of all-
actually is like, he says like she should stay and help me. I could really use the help, actually.
I nearly died.
The mother's like, nope. Get our girl away from him.
Yeah.
All right.
It's very clearly like being protective.
Sure.
Later, Trip and T'Pol are in engineering together. They've now apparently found the light switch because the lights are on. no longer working in the dark. And
Good.
Trip will not stop talking about Liana.
T'Pol just walks into the room and says, "Why don't you turn the lights on?" and flips the little switch next to the door.
Why are you working in the dark?
Trip just keeps mentioning Liana. He's like, oh, T'Pol, like, you should have Liana help you. And T'Pol's like, I don't need her help. And he's like, no, she's great. Like, so then we get this conversation. I am going to just have us read it. I will play T'Pol. Which one of you guys wants to play Trip?
Oh, I think it's got to be Maria.
What? Okay. Sure.
All right, Maria, you're Trip.
I will play Trip.
Maria, can you do the accent as well?
Sure.
All right, so I'm T'Pol. Maria, you're Trip.
All right.
By the way you keep talking about her, you obviously appreciate her technical expertise.
She's very competent.
No, more Florida, please.
Fine. All right, hold on. Let me get there. She's very competent.
Perfect.
So was the female engineer on the Zerillion ship.
Oh, damn. You're never gonna let that go, are you?
I'm simply noting that the last time you found someone this competent, you wound up carrying her child.
I love her so much. I love her so much.
These two are fucking.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely gonna fuck.
No, I'm saying this has been
they're
happening
currently
since
fucking.
since the second part of the first episode.
I love that headcanon.
And just at that moment, Liana walks in, holding a tray with some sort of like melon dish on it, and she says, "Am I interrupting something?" And T'Pol replies, "Not at all. Commander Tucker and I were just discussing his previous repair experience."
Oh, damn.
Does Trip do that little exasperated look that he does whenever T'Pol puts a zinger on him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
excellent.
He's like he's clearly bothered by this. And just like, oh, like, why are you bringing this up?
Oh, that's my boy.
T'Pol then leaves, and Liana gives the melon thing to Trip. Trip starts eating it.
Yeah,
and
she does.
Liana just stares at him while he eats.
Of
to the
course.
point where he's like, I feel like I'm in a zoo. But he's also clearly like extremely flattered.
Like digging
Like he
it.
can tell because she's clearly
sure.
looking at him because she is into him, and he is like very much noticing this. Now, you have to understand, through this entire episode, every time these two look at or talk to each other, they have big goofy smiles on their faces. They're like looking at each other like with like glassy eyes. They are so into each other. They only talk to each other in flirts.
Oh.
They clearly have a
Is-
crush on each other.
Is Trip a really dumb Labrador Retriever?
Yes. That's what himbo
Yeah, that's
is.
basically
A golden lab. Okay,
A
yeah.
golden,
okay,
a
that's-
golden, yeah.
Yeah. As we've mentioned, Trip gives himbo.
He is absolutely a himbo.
But there's no cunning about it. There's no planning. It's just
No.
pure
he's-
energy
no,
coming
he
at
just
you.
don't
Which is the
have
best
cunning.
part of
Exactly.
That's the
yeah.
best part is they just are.
That's why you want a himbo. Himbos are great.
Yeah, like when he looks at Liana, you just see it in his eyes. He's like, wow. In his eyes, he's like, wow, I like this girl. I'm gonna talk to her. Like, there's no cunning or manipulation. He's just like clearly just into her.
And they're just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Happy to be part of this.
So they chat about some things. They're flirting. Liana's very clearly fishing to see if he has a girlfriend.
Really? Because you're probably never going to see this guy again. Just fucking flirt with him, man. It's fine.
Are you currently carrying any symbiotes in your chest right now, Commander?
Do you have any sexually transmitted diseases? Those are the only things I really care about.
As part of this conversation, Trip also mentions that fact about nearly a third of the crew being women again.
Oh my god.
The writers of the show, they just want to make sure that we know that only a third of this crew are women. But
No,
he
they're
does say that
bragging
he doesn't
about
have
it.
a girlfriend.
They are. They're really proud.
I know.
Of that
again,
pile of women that we saw in the Ferengi episode.
Trip again says it like, yeah, nearly a third of the crew are women.
Is that in the PowerPoint stack for Starfleet recruiting? Nearly 1/3 of our crew are women, and they show this pile of women that they have. And then in next quarter, we hope to have this many women in our pile.
Trip steers the conversation to her world, saying that she must be really looking forward to going back home to her world, which is called Kantari. But as he says this, she suddenly gets this concerned look on her face. Trip clearly notices, but before he can ask her more, the captain and the engineer come in and interrupt them. The captain tells them that there's something else he wants to show them. The captain, the engineer, Liana, Trip, and T'Pol all then go to the computer core. The captain says that it controls all of the ship's vital functions, but that it's degrading and it could potentially fail, and he wants them to help fix it. Trip says it looks very familiar because he saw something like it on the Zerillian ship, and he thinks he can fix it.
Mm-hmm. The Zerillians are the ones where he got pregnant?
Yep, that's the one.
Jesus Christ, Trip. Do you have to bring that up again?
Does he have to crawl around underneath the computer?
That he's like, oh yeah, this looks a lot like the Zerillian ship.
I'm going to need some cubes of mescaline and a little rolly cart.
Need some water, cubes.
He does say that he has to go back to the Enterprise to get some gear. And he asks Liana if she wants to come, saying that he could buy her lunch this time.
Cute.
Liana wants to go, but the captain is like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
The captain or the engineer?
The captain.
Oh, okay.
So Trip and T'Pol leave the room, and as soon as they leave, Liana turns to her father, the engineer, and begs him to let her go. And she says to him that she promises not to say anything.
Oh.
So she clearly has some sort of secret.
Secrets and lies.
I love it.
Back on the Enterprise, Malcolm and Travis are now giving a report to Archer about everything that they've discovered so far about the alien ship and what must have happened to it. They point out 3 things that are suspicious in the story that the aliens told them.
And Archer has to guess which one is the lie.
Statement 1, no.
Number 1.
So the first thing is that all of the damage to the ship appears to be from the impact of the crash. There's no evidence that they were actually shot out prior to crashing, as they claimed. Secondly, it's really strange that they did not send out a distress call even after 3 years. Like,
Right.
they said the reason was because they were afraid the Raiders would come back, but after 3 years, you would think like the Raiders would be gone by now.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the third thing is the aeroponics bay is not large enough to grow enough food to feed all the people that they currently have on the ship. So it's not clear how they're all surviving.
Interesting. Well, and this is
Okay.
who's telling them this? Travis?
Malcolm and Travis.
Okay.
I have a thought in my head. In the 80s, there was a 2-part miniseries called Goliath Awaits. And the premise of it was, what if the Titanic, although the ship was called the Goliath, it sank in World War II, but it flipped over, creating air pockets, and there had been survivors in this sunken ship this entire time. And then, quote-unquote, James Cameron or whoever comes by and finds this ship.
James Cameron, sorry.
Well, but it's like, it's a
Yeah, no,
submersible
somebody finds the
exploration
ship.
vehicle.
Yeah.
And there are people who are alive in there. And it's, you know, it's a TV miniseries, but the whole premise is, yeah, the people are alive in there, but it's this fascistic society where Christopher Lee was like the 3rd commander. Anyway, it's basically, he's been keeping the society alive, but they're basically cannibalizing each other and killing the sick and weak, but they have this slime thing. And it's this whole thing where the old people don't want them to be rescued because they have all the power there. Yeah.
Maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Or it's that fantastic documentary Blast from the Past.
Also, guys, I love that Titanic came up twice this episode. So.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Liana was able to convince her father to let her visit the ship because Trip is now giving her a tour and telling her all about all the different people and species on the ship.
all three of them.
Yeah, fair enough.
Plus the dog.
Yeah, he actually says
4.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that later. But Trip then changes the subject and asks her about Kantari, her planet. And she goes, "Oh, it's so boring. I would rather hear more about you and everywhere you've been." She asked Trip what his favorite planet so far that he's been to is, and Trip says, "It's this one."
Aww.
But they're not on a planet, are they? They're on
the crashed ship is on a planet.
Oh, okay, fine. Right.
A boring planet with no life signs.
There's
but,
nothing going on. Yeah, great. Cool.
It's not clear they've been to the planet.
No,
They've
to
been
To be
on
fair, what else would he say? Cocaine cave planet? Like, there was this planet where I went fucking crazy. I loved it.
I like imagining that they named the planet Cocaine Cave.
How great would it be
planet.
if Trip just summarized the planets and all the crazy fucking shit, and she's got this look of horror that just dropped over her face?
I would like to go home now.
And that's why my race stopped exploring the galaxy. Yeah, that's why the Vulcans stopped exploring.
Oh, can I? I just have now I have a theory. Can I say my theory about what's going
Tell me
on?
your theory.
My theory is that they are prisoners who are escaping.
Ooh, that's a great theory.
It was a prison transport. They had some sort of issue. They managed to kill the people in charge, and they are just hanging out, which is why she doesn't want anything to do.
That's why they don't want to go home.
That's why they don't want to go home.
Just as they're in middle of flirting, they are interrupted by Archer calling Trip to his ready room. So Trip then goes to Archer's ready room, and Archer's there with Malcolm. And Archer looks at Trip and he goes, "So, spending lots of time with Liana, huh?" And Trip immediately gets defensive, and he's like, "Did T'Pol say something? I swear I have been nothing but a perfect gentleman."
Oh,
Wait, that's what he said when he got pregnant on the one ship. I was a
true.
perfect gentleman the entire time.
yeah. What is a Florida gentleman?
Archer is like, I'm sure you were. No idea what you're talking about. We were just here to tell you about the results of some data modules that we downloaded from the ship.
Awkward. But now I'd like to know what the hell is going on.
Yeah. So the data modules that they downloaded from the ship confirmed that the ship was never attacked. The reason it crashed was because of some sort of onboard malfunction that caused a depressurization.
Mm-hmm.
They have also calculated that the ship has been at the crash site not 3 years, but 22 years.
Whoa.
Oh, shit. Wait, is Trip's lady friend, whose name I've forgotten?
Liana.
Liana's mother?
She's like an older woman.
Oh, yeah, she does show up.
She's on the ship.
Wait,
yeah.
She is on the ship, okay.
I'm sorry, Maria. Were you asking if she's available?
Available? Is she available for questioning? No, my thought immediately was like, they are like a generation ship, so like, is the mother still there?
Okay.
That was I was just trying to figure out if like she was born on the ship, because she's clearly like young, right?
She's in her mid to late 20s, so they actually say at some point that she would have been 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that kind of throws away my theory.
All right, but they're sus. There's some
Oh, they're definitely
weird
sus.
shit. Yeah.
And we know that it takes a year to get back to their home planet, which means like at most she would have been like 4 years old when they left the planet.
Okay.
Right,
So she probably doesn't have any memories, which is why she gets like weird about it when Trip mentions it.
Right.
All right.
Well, I'm just saying my theory goes away there because I was thinking it was just a bunch of prisoners, but if there were children on the ship, that doesn't make sense.
So there were some escape pods that launched during the crash, and one of them was actually still in orbit around the planet. So they decided to bring it in and just like see what's on it.
Oh, no.
The 3 of them and Phlox go to check out the escape pod, and they open it, and inside is, of course, a body. Mm-hmm. But Trip recognizes the body. It is Shallot, who is one of the alien crew members. I didn't mention him earlier because he's just like one. He's basically just an extra practically, but it's very clear that this body is him.
Ghost ship.
Ghost ship.
Trip then goes to the mess hall where Liana is eating ice cream. And she kind of tries to continue to flirt with him, but he's clearly like a little bit uncomfortable because now he knows that she's been lying to him. He tells her that the scans show that the ship crashed 22 years ago, and he tells her about the escape pod with Shallot's body and asks her what's going on.
Trip's all like, are you a ghost?
Is this a candle situation?
Is this a candle situation?
Let's be clear. That's not a deal breaker, but I want to know.
I would just like the information to know what I'm getting into here.
She tells him that she can't tell him and asks him to take her home.
And it turns out that her address is the graveyard, and he comes by the next day and finds her sweater folded over the tombstone.
Worst date ever.
Meanwhile, T'Pol has been down on the alien ship this entire time, and no one has bothered to tell her that there's all these suspicions, so she's just working like normal. Meanwhile, they know like there's something up with these aliens, and maybe she could be in danger, but nobody has told her.
Oh my God.
So she sees something that she's working on that causes her to question something, and she decides to go check out a different part of the ship. And as she's doing it, a bunch of crew members come out and tell her she shouldn't be looking in that area. And then they capture her.
These guys make so many bad decisions. I can't even.
Archer, Malcolm, Trip, and Liana then take a shuttle back down to the planet. The captain and some crew members of the ship immediately show up with and point phase pistols at them. They tell Archer and Malcolm just to go back to Enterprise, but they kidnap Trip, saying that they will let him go after he completes the repairs to the control core. As he's being taken away, Liana turns to her father and says, "Make them stop. They will listen to you," but he stays silent. The engineer then forces Trip at gunpoint to fix the control core. And it's very clear they care only about the control core. They do not care about getting the engines online, only control core. Mm-hmm. And Trip tells him he doesn't understand why. Like, he says that he thinks Liana deserves to go home, so they should also have him fixing the engineering stuff.
Right.
Have they established what the control core does, or they just say that
they said it runs all the vital stuff
so that
on the
allows
ship.
them to continue to live on that in that.
Yeah, presumably, I think all the life support and stuff like that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
In the aeroponics bay, Liana is talking to her mother and tells her mother that she doesn't believe her father is really doing this for her sake. Her mom replies, "I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for your father." Liana says that he could just tell everyone the truth, that everyone from the Enterprise, they're nice people. And her mother says he can't. Liana replies, "He can do whatever he wants. He's not like you."
Guess he can't reveal the truth. Not until the 5th act.
Meanwhile, Trip is working on the computer core. He's now got Shallot, so the same guy whose body we saw is the one just standing pointing the phase pistol at him while he works.
I have a question. This man's name is Shallot.
Shallot.
Like the small onion, Shallot.
Well, it's Shallot.
Okay. Some people say Shallot.
Really?
I suppose you could.
Shallot?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, maybe. Sure. Yeah, if you pronounce Shallot, then yes, that is this man's name.
I am not the only person. Enterprise plating fans. Do any of you pronounce Shallot? The Lady of Shallot. The Lady of Shallot. You say the Lady of Shallot. You don't say the Lady of Shallot.
It's Shallot to deal with.
It's Shallot to deal with here.
Liana comes in and she tells Shallot to wait outside, and he immediately just leaves. And Liana tells Trip that they do what she tells them to do. Trip asks her if that means she could tell him to let him go, and she says she can't.
Interesting.
Archer, Malcolm, Travis, and some random other crew member that just from
we have
Enterprise.
a random crew member? That's fun.
Yeah, there's just a red shirt.
Male.
Yeah.
Of course.
They've now taken the shuttle back down to the planet to stage a rescue mission. They then split up immediately. Archer goes off with Malcolm. Travis goes off with the red shirt. We never see Travis in the red shirt again. They're just the camera's going to follow Archer and Malcolm.
I'm so angry for the guy who plays Travis. I'm so
I know.
angry
Oh, yeah.
for that guy. Come on, give him a couple of scenes. Like, they give him nothing. It sucks.
Like, Hoshi gets very few lines too, but they've at least had some good episodes with her, some really good scenes, and Travis just gets shit.
No, they've had actual like character development with Hoshi. Like, not a lot, but
Yeah.
they've had enough. They've had stories that are based around what's going on with her, and nothing for Travis. Well, I mean, I guess they had that one Fortunate Son episode, but he wasn't. He should have been front and center, but he wasn't in that. It sucks.
Is Travis the Tashiar of season 1 here?
Maybe.
Kind of seems
I mean,
like
that
it.
was her complaint, was and like obviously.
Yeah. Archer and Malcolm are immediately ambushed.
How many times have we said that? The crew of
know.
the Enterprise is immediately captured. They're
This is like
so
the fifth time this has happened just in this episode.
Yeah.
Malcolm is shot in the back with a phaser, but don't worry about him. He's totally fine. He literally like limps a bit and then is fine. And
He's
it
shot
never
with a
is mentioned
phaser,
again.
but has-
He is shot with a phaser like right in the middle of his back. He's fine. No big deal.
Thanks.
The phasers apparently do nothing. They start shooting back and they hit some of the guys that they're shooting with the phasers go right through them. Like right through their bodies and doesn't seem to affect them.
Ghosts.
And also appear to be able to walk through walls.
Ghosts. That's going to be the name of this
What?
episode, you guys.
Only one thing to do: cross the streams.
Guys, there's James.
We cut back to the computer core where Liana has decided to tell the trip.
Tell the trip.
to tell the trip. It's my new game show on the Buzzer Network. I'm going to give you 4 situations about how Trip would react.
She has decided she's going to tell Trip the truth about what is going on. The computer core is essentially running a ship-wide holo program.
Ah.
Liana and her father are real, but everyone else are holo recreations of the original crew
amazing.
members. This is why, remember when Trip said it looked like Zerillion technology, and the Zerillions had a holodeck?
They had the holodeck. Yes. Okay, that's cool. I like that.
That is cool.
Trip asks her if she can do something to save his friends because they're about to die, which, how does he know that?
Great question.
Generally speaking, this crew is about 2 seconds away from death every single...
He's just assuming.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
She then starts removing these like cartridges from the core. And every time she removes a cartridge, one of the crew members at the phaser fight disappears until only the engineer is left.
So the only 2 real people are her and her dad?
Yeah, Odo.
Aw, sad.
So later on, everyone who is on the planet is now in a room together. And Archer is questioning Liana's father. He says that he created all of the holograms himself. He says 22 years ago, they got hit by an ion storm and leaking plasma was burning through the hull. So the captain set a course to crash land on the planet. And if the plasma leak had continued to grow, it could explode. And as chief engineer, it was his job to try to contain the damage and avoid the explosion. But Liana, who was a child at the time, was in their quarters on the lowest deck, in the section of the ship that would almost certainly be destroyed in the crash landing. So he abandoned his post to go to his quarters to save her.
Aww.
The plasma leak ended up growing and causing an explosion, which killed half of the crew instantly, including his wife. Others made it to escape pods, but once the crash was over, only him and his daughter survived.
Ugh, rough.
Survivor's guilt.
He says that for the first 2 years, he did try to repair the ship, but he wasn't able to, and he just couldn't stand to see his daughter growing up alone. So he started creating holo versions of the people that they used to know on the ship, including her mother,
What a cool premise.
in
Yeah, it's
order
really
to
cool.
keep his daughter company. What I love about it is he never mentions, like, to keep him company. It's all about his
All
daughter.
about her, yeah.
He doesn't say that he's lonely at any point,
I
but
love
he's
that.
worried that his daughter will be lonely. Trip gets all self-righteous about it.
What?
Well, so the problem is that he doesn't want them to fix the engine. He wants to continue living like this.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And Tripp says it's unfair to make his daughter just grow up with all these fake people. Like, they're not real. And he's like,
Right.
what happens after you die? Like, she just lives on the ship alone with hollow people?
And she knows, right? She knows they're hollow people.
She's known this the whole time. Like, there's a scene where he says that he has never kept any secrets from his daughter.
Okay.
She knows everything. It's also, by the way, why, like, when she told the one guy to leave, he just, like, left.
Oh, I see. 'Cause it was like end program, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, he's clearly programmed to listen to her, but it seems like he's maybe not, they're not programmed to listen to her if her father's around, but if her father's not there, they seem to listen to her.
Really reminds me. There's an episode of Discovery that this really reminds me of. This is actually pretty cool.
There's a fun little Easter egg in this conversation where Tripp says, what if she gets hurt? What will you do then? Program a holographic doctor?
Oh, cute.
And Robert
which-
Picardo pokes his head in and oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about me. Oh, awkward.
Please-
I'm sorry.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Yeah, I was like, even I know that that's a Voyager reference, but I actually only know that because of that DS9 crossover episode. Archer tells them that they will finish fixing their holographic system.
But
But
why?
he really-
No. Take the two living people off the fucking ship, Archer.
They don't want to go. They've already established they don't want to go. Archer also says he disagrees with them. Archer wants to fix their engines so that they could go home.
Sure.
And
They don't want that.
They don't want their engines fixed.
Well, both of them.
That's my question. Like, the
father and daughter
doesn't want to, but does the daughter not want that either?
The father is the one in charge. The daughter we don't really hear from on this matter, but we can assume based on how she was earlier with Tripp, she was so fascinated by all these worlds he'd visited that it kind of seems like she would like it, but her father absolutely refuses.
Okay.
It's fucked up.
Which is what Tripp tells him. Tripp gets
Immigrant
genuinely
parents.
really angry and is like, this is so unfair to your daughter. Like, you could be giving her a better life and you're not. And he gets really upset because he's like, I'm her father. Like, I know what the best life for her is.
I want her to marry a hologram and settle down and raise hologram children.
Hologram
and
children.
go to the hologram church.
There are 2 scenes left. But before we go into the second to last scene, I've got something to say.
Please
When
do.
we started this podcast, we were not sure if our whole format where one of us explains everything to the others would work. And the thing is, I think for most television shows, our format actually would not work. For example, just yesterday, I watched the movie Rebecca, the Hitchcock one from 1940.
Great movie.
And if I tried to describe this movie to you and just what happened in it, it would be so boring. It would fully not capture the essence of what the movie is, like the growing sense of dread you get as the movie continues. And that's because TV shows and movies are more than just descriptions of what happened. A good movie, a good TV show, it makes you feel things when you're watching it. And if you just describe it, it's just boring, right? It doesn't capture everything.
You're really selling our podcast well here, Jamie.
I know.
Wait, is this the clip that we're including in our promo?
Wait, are we not doing this podcast anymore? Is this you telling us you don't want to do the podcast?
No, this is Jamie's about to reveal that both you and I are holograms, Maria, and she's going to end program and walk
You
up.
guys are AI.
Jamie's going to say computer end program. Well, I'm glad I learned about enterprise splaining, and now that helps me
No,
solve
the thing
this
is,
problem.
For Enterprise, this has worked, right? Our format has
great.
worked.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, our descriptions are often better than the show itself, I think.
Or they sort of enhance the experience of watching the show, in my opinion.
Yes.
Right.
But that is because it's not a very good show, right?
Correct.
Like, there's nothing in this show that can't just be described to someone. You describe it and you've got 99% of it. Like, why even bother watching it? This is all to say, this next scene is an exception. I am going to tell you guys what happened in it, but there is no way that I can fully capture this scene for you guys.
Oh, cool.
There is a special something in this scene. It is so good. It is probably the best scene that we have had on Enterprise up to this point.
All right.
And you're just going to have to watch it. So I'll tell you now what happens, but I cannot wait for you guys to watch it. I watched this scene 6 times just because I kept being like, I just want to see it again.
Okay. There are definitely scenes in movies and TV shows that I'm definitely like that.
So we are back on the Enterprise, and the engineer is visiting Archer in his quarters. He is wrestling with the fact that after 22 years, the ship is his home, and he's happy there with his daughter. She has always seemed happy there too, but now this Mr. Tucker, as he puts it, has put all these ideas in her head, and now her daughter is thinking about leaving their little oasis. He's really bristling at the fact that Trip called him selfish for keeping her there, because he felt like he's been doing everything that he could to give her the best possible life, and that everything that he did was for her. And now Trip is kind of making him see that maybe he has gotten a little too comfortable there, and maybe he needs to get used to a little bit of change, and that maybe there's actually a better life out there for his daughter.
Like what is possible is now expanded.
He asks Archer to help him take his daughter home. Wow. Archer says he'll be very happy to fix their engines, but he's like, no, we don't need you guys to fix it. I'm an engineer, and I have an entire crew that are very good at engineering because he made them that way.
Right.
But they do need some supplies to be able to do it, and he gives Archer the list of supplies that they need.
Or we could take the 2 living beings on our ship.
Well, but their planet is a year
still
away.
a year away. Regardless, they're still I mean, I guess they can give them a shuttle pod or something, but I don't know that they have...
Let's continue.
Yeah. And to me, it makes sense that... So here's the thing. Anything that you're like... It doesn't make sense that he would want to just stay there. Why wouldn't he want to go home? Why would he want them to just help him fix it quicker? Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. You say all that, but when you see the scene... Okay. You believe him.
Yeah.
René.
Well, I like René Aubernjonois.
Aubernjonois. Is that how you pronounce his name? Aubernjonois?
Aubernjonois, yeah.
He makes you believe every word of this.
Sure.
I went into the scene being like, so much of this doesn't make sense. There's all these plot holes. And I came out being like, everything this man says is true. Mm-hmm. I believe every word. Cannot question it.
Yep. What a fucking legend he is. He is such a great actor. God.
But guys, the episode is not over. We have one more scene because Trip has to say goodbye to Liana. He brings her a protein resequencer, saying that he programmed it to make 5 flavors of ice cream. They flirt a little bit. They smile at each other. They kiss. End of episode.
Oh, they kiss.
They do kiss.
Nice. They do kiss.
Oh. I like that. This seems like it was a fun episode.
It was my favorite episode so far.
Oh,
and
that's huge.
It's a good
almost
premise
entirely because of René Aubernjonois.
Aubernjonois, who I saw recently on 2 separate episodes of Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, me too. I've been watching that too.
On the new one? He's on the new one?
No, on the old.
Oh, on the old
original.
one.
Oh, no, here's the Murder, She Wrote
with us. So.
I've heard that the new one's good.
Wait, there's a new Murder, She Wrote?
There's a new Murder, She Wrote, and it's supposed to be really good.
Wait, are you thinking of... Wait. Are you thinking of Matlock?
Yes, I've been watching the shit out of Matlock. The new Matlock?
I'm thinking of Matlock.
God damn it, Jamie.
Come on, JD. Get your cozy mysteries right.
Oh my God. How do I do this every episode?
What are we even talking about here? René Aubernjonois. It's like a trunk falling downstairs. Aubernjonois. Da-da-da-da.
I realized something watching this episode. I know we've talked about how the 3 of us have agreed that like the actors on the show are good. Mm-hmm. I think we've been tricked. I don't think they are actually good because I think that they are just not bad and we expect it to be bad. Yeah. But I think being not bad is different than being good.
Good.
And I think this episode makes it obvious because none of them get even slightly close to the level that René Aubernjonois is at. Like he is an absolute tour de force. He's barely in the episode up until the very end, and yet he steals the whole episode.
That's so
He's
cool.
so good that next to him, even Scott Bakula just is like not bringing it. I can say without reservations that this was a good episode of Star Trek. It felt like a Star Trek episode.
Cool.
It had a fun mystery at its center. The twist at the end felt earned. When I went and watched the episode a second time, I noticed all these tiny details that when they did the mystery, I was like, yes. Yeah, okay, I see how they got from point A to point B. It was just a solid Star Trek episode. It brought up like bigger ideas about what it means to be a family, what it means to make a home. I
love that.
I really liked this episode.
So, guys, are we getting? So, we've been shitting on this show for a whole season almost, and people keep telling us. I've heard it from many people that the show gets better. Are we getting to the point where the show gets better? Fingers crossed, because I'm all in for a show that gets better. For sure.
I don't see that as a downside that the show gets better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not. Yeah.
I think our job's going to be harder because most of what we do is shit on this show. Right?
Well, and that's what I'm saying is it's actually really hard to explain a scene where what makes the scene so arresting is the acting in it, not actually what they're saying.
I love that.
And I mean, when you see the way he's like wrestling with it, you just see it on his face. Like, I can't describe that to you accurately.
Right.
But all the other episodes leading up to this point that I thought were good episodes of this show. The bar was this show. This episode was a good Star Trek episode.
Fantastic.
It's a much higher bar. But it was good because of an actor that is probably never coming back. So I'm not worrid that this show's suddenly going to get good and then we're not going to be able to do our podcast anymore.
Yeah.
As much as that has been our brand at this point, like just ragging on the show for how insane it is, if this show gets good, fantastic, cool. I'm down with watching a good show.
I want this show to be good. I really do.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've all been trying to like make excuses for it in a lot of ways.
That's why
like,
we're like, oh, the acting is good. The acting's not good. The acting's just not bad.
I don't know, Jamie. I feel like they're working with what they have.
When you see them next to somebody who has the same script as them, but is a good actor...
Yeah, but don't underestimate the power of a good story, right? I mean, how many times have we said it's not necessarily the acting, it's the story?
I think on TNG, there were some terrible episodes, but when Patrick Stewart brings his all, he brings his all, and he'll have amazing scenes.
Yeah, that's fair.
That is what this scene was like, and we never get anything. We never see them rising above the material to this extent, because they aren't, they're good enough to make it not bad, but they're not good enough to make it genuinely very good.
Right.
Look, having been in theater, like I feel for the actors because I feel like they have not been given great material.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like they are doing the best for what they have, because I have seen so many terrible movies, or I have seen so many potentially good movies wrecked by bad acting where the actors either cannot or simply don't care. I get the feeling that these actors are trying their hardest.
Oh,
especially...
they care and they're trying their hardest. I just think there's like a level of acting where like you jump to like, oh, this person's an amazing actor.
But I feel like in order to do that, every actor in the show would have to be able to rise above the script.
But we don't even see one of them doing it.
To me, that means it's not a great script. And to be fair, I'm a writer. So like, of course, I'm going to blame the I'm going to focus on the writing. Bill has done acting and he's more on that side.
If you have a good script, a good director, there could be someone that could get some gold out of these actors.
Absolutely.
They're clearly like fine actors. They're good at their jobs. But if you have someone who's as good as like a Patrick Stewart or a René Aubernjonois, they can elevate it above the writing, above the directing, and just make it like really good.
Right.
Okay. If you watch old Doctor Who, like pre-New Who, one of the things that elevates it is the acting of these British trained actors who are taking it completely seriously, even though they are fighting a garbage bag.
Right. I will say this. I think there's a difference between coming in as a guest star and doing a really good job on a single episode versus I am being given shit week after week after week.
Patrick Stewart dealt with that, and he spun gold out of it every single week. In scripts that are much worse than the scripts that we have on
and
the
if
show.
you're going to compare Connor Trenier to Patrick Stewart, of course, I think these actors did the best that they could with the material that they had, and good for them. But yes, that is why we kind of are like, yeah, this doesn't work. So it's really exciting to hear that there's an episode that works.
I would not say that Patrick Stewart's performance in season 1 of Star Trek Next Generation is equal to Patrick Stewart's performance in season 7.
Sure,
it does take him a while, so maybe we will see these actors grow. I would say most of these actors are starting at a higher point than pretty much anybody on TNG season 1. So it will be interesting to see where maybe they will get to have a scene like this and really sell it.
And we're almost done with season 1, so it actually looks like we might get to season 2, which is not something I thought would happen.
Wait, they made a season 2 of this show?
I just want to real quick go back to Two Truths and a Lie. The truths were T'Pol gave Trip shit about getting pregnant, and Hoshi gave Travis shit about being haunted.
So I was right. I got it. And also you thought that, but then you changed changed it.
I'm pretty sure I was wrong, whatever my pick was.
Yeah, the lie was Archer giving Malcolm shit about blowing stuff up.
Archer ain't gonna ever give Malcolm shit about blowing shit up.
I think my pick was that Porthos was elevated to command physician of the Starship Enterprise.
Good segue into our Porthos Good Boy scale. When Liana was getting a tour of the ship, Trip told her that there were 83 people on the ship. 81 are human, 1 is a Vulcan, and 1 is a Denobulan. She asked if she can meet the Denobulan, and Trip is like, of course you can. Like, Phlox would be so upset if I did not bring you to meet him.
Trip bows his head, is like, okay, let's head to the mess hall. Jesus.
Yeah, let's do this.
And then Trip is like, but also, I forgot about Porthos. We have a dog named Porthos. And Liana's like, what's a dog? Trip says that it's a mammal with 4 legs, big ears, and kind of cute.
Oh, so Porthos gets referred to, but not doesn't show.
Liana asks what he does. And Trip says, not much. She asks if she can meet Porthos. And Trip says, I hope you'll leave some time left for me. But he does tell her that he will take her to meet Porthos later.
But we don't see it.
We don't see it.
Bummer. I'm just saying, we haven't, like, we saw Porthos in the last episode, and he was, that was for the first time in a while, but he's so much smaller than I thought he was.
I know. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh, he's so small.
Eagles
when he
are
got picked up.
Yeah.
So cute. I love him so much.
So this is the final season of Star Trek Lower Decks. Is the spinoff going to be Star Trek Porthos?
Oh, fingers crossed. I would watch the shit out of that.
The saucy section. Guys, there was so much flirting. Liana and Trip were just like constantly flirting with each other. The whole like a character gets a love interest for one episode is very cliche. These two characters were so charming. Like Liana felt really believable. Like if you think about it, she's been living on the ship for 22 years with just her father and a bunch of like holodeck people that like she's definitely can't be like fucking the holodeck people because like they're just they're like her father.
Disagree.
100% was fucking all of holodeck people.
Disagree.
No, sorry.
That's
her
100%.
Her father made them all and like programmed them all. I just like don't believe.
Yeah, that's weird. I agree. That's weird.
It is believable to me that the second this like young, kind of good-looking guy around her age shows up, she would be totally obsessed with him, and that she doesn't really know how to flirt or how to like hide her feelings. She just like openly just like stares at him like, holy shit, a man.
Why you got to talk about my high school years, Jamie? So rude.
But yeah, she's fascinated by him. She immediately develops a huge crush on him. And Trip being our resident himbo, it's also believable that, like, he sees how very obvious she is towards him and immediately is, like, kind of flattered by it and starts flirting back and gets kind of into her. No. It is fully believable. It doesn't feel... A lot of times on Star Trek, I feel like these, like, one-off love interests feel very forced. This did not feel forced. It felt very natural and earned.
No, Trip is your designated practice boy.
Yeah, for sure.
Never asked, never answered for something in the episode that made no sense and was never explained. There are a bunch of plot holes if you really think about it. And the biggest one that bothered me was it wasn't clear why they never sent a distress signal. He says that the first 2 years he tried to get the engines going so they could go back to their planet, but yet he never put out a distress signal in that time.
I'm sorry, I've forgotten. Why did they crash?
There was a plasma explosion from an ion storm.
Also, this motherfucker had a crew, like, had a holographic crew that could have repaired the ship.
He really sells, like, at the end, he really sells it that, like, he doesn't want to go home. He calls it an oasis. He is happy with his life, and he wants his life to continue as it is.
Yeah. Here's a fix for this episode is that he was injured in the crash and is technically alive, but the ship is keeping him alive, but the ship can't actually go anywhere.
No, not a fix. Not a fix, because you have to have him choosing to stay. That's where the emotional resonance comes from.
Cool. But that's what I'm saying is that the reason why he created this whole is like he's technically alive, but he can't leave the place. And his struggle is his ego is like he can't let his daughter go.
No. The emotional resonance is that he calls it an oasis. He loves it there. It's not that he doesn't want to lose his daughter. Is that he believes that he has built a happy life for them both.
To your question about why would he choose that to begin with, I mean, that feels like a control issue.
The question is, the first 2 years, clearly he had not chosen it yet because he was trying to get the engines running. Right. And he wasn't happy there yet. And so then the question is, why did he never send out a distress signal?
Do we actually see the other ship leaving at the end of this episode?
No, because remember, they just gave the supplies and they're gonna fix it themselves. It's gonna take a little while.
So this motherfucker could just be keeping his daughter hostage on this planet.
No, Bill, I'm telling you, when René Aubernjonois says that he wants to help take his daughter home, he is telling the truth. Okay. He is going to do that.
Okay. All right.
I mean, trust me, it's just like he says something and he makes you believe that he believes it.
Oh, I know this dude.
Technical difficulties. I mean, this is like always, but how the fuck do holodecks work? Why was it able to work on the entirety of the whole ship? How was it, like, he was able to get, like, it's pretty clear that they didn't originally have a holodeck. It was like a computer core, or I don't know, maybe they did have a holodeck and you just got it to work everywhere. I don't know. It's not, nothing is explained. It just, you just accept it. You just accept it. It's Star Trek magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely sounds like Star Trek magic.
Fucking holodecks, how do they work?
What the Phlox, for the creepiest thing Phlox said, when they open up the escape pod and they see the dead body, Phlox says, "I don't believe you'll be needing my services."
Ew. God. Yeah,
although, wouldn't he be doing the autopsy? Like, you'd assume.
Yeah, you probably do need his services. Also, he's a space vet. He always needs his services.
Speaking of being a space vet, later when Liana is telling Trip about how the rest of her tour went after he left, she says that her favorite was sickbay because Dr. Phlox let her feed his bat.
Let her feed his bat is the worst euphemism.
Yes, chef. We did not get any specific chef mentions, but the first scene where they were having dinner had a lot of like chatting about food. They were eating salads and bread, and apparently the merchant gave them a sample of some spice he sells that they put on the food, and it was incredibly spicy. It's called hajlarin. Both Archer and Trip are eating this, and they look absolutely pained from the spice. And they're like, so they like, this is like some interesting spice that you gave us. And the merchant says that there's like some planet he got it from. The warlords on that planet use it to test their courage. And then he turns to T'Pol, and T'Pol does not look pained because she has not had any of this. She has not put the spice on her food. And he's like, don't you want to try a little of the spice? And T'Pol replies, my courage doesn't need testing.
These people are all doing the hot ones. Like, it's one big hot ones episode.
What's the spice called?
Hajlaran.
Oh my god, that's a sentient species from episode 3 of the 4th season of Voyager.
They make it out of the slugs from the last episode. They grind them down. But I just love that the guys are like, yeah, we can have the spice, we can handle it. And T'Pol's like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I have no desire to play your little game.
That would be an interesting question: is how would Vulcans react to very spicy food? Because we've established, Phlox has established that they eat very bland things. Mm-hmm. That
I wonder if spicy food is extra.
Could they control their reaction to intense food?
Yeah, it's harder to do it. So the really hardcore Vulcans can do it, but yeah.
That's how they determine who's on the Vulcan High Command. The hot ones challenge.
Okay. Moving on. This is the segment of our show we like to call Will's Holorex. We all know what one William Riker is doing in his holodeck. That's right, he is binging Enterprise. But we want to give him our recommendations for non-Enterprise related content that he could be doing instead. Bill, what is your recommendation?
My recommendation this week is, I'm going to pull a Jamie. I'm going to do a musical recommendation. And it is by Matt Berry. A lot of people know him as an actor. He is on the series What We Do in the Shadows. He was also
his line readings on that show are
so good.
He's fantastic.
Perfect.
I love this man.
Back.
Yeah.
Love this man. He's also been on Mighty Boosh, and I knew him from Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, but he is also a musician, and he, in 2018, produced an album. This is actually his 7th album that he has released. It's an album called Television Themes. It is an mostly acoustic album where he has re-recorded television theme songs that he found interesting. They're mostly British themes. The first track on there is the theme from Are You Being Served? He also has a Doctor Who theme on there, but he also does very fascinating things on there. Some of these tracks are only 8 seconds long. He does the theme from the Tim's Television introduction theme. He does the theme from Top of the Pops. It's just a fascinating look into what this fascinating and weird guy thinks was interesting music, and I highly recommend you listen to it.
Awesome.
Matt Berry, Television Themes.
Maria, what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is an Apple TV movie called Wolfs. WOLFS, not wolves.
Okay.
And it stars George Clooney and Brad Pitt, who both play fixers, the people that you call when you're in big trouble, you've killed somebody or somebody is dead and you need them to fix it. It starts with a DA who runs into a problem like that and calls one of them, and for various reasons, they both show up and they don't know the other exists, and they have to it ends up being like a buddy cop kind of a movie because they have to figure out who actually did the murder. It's super fun. It's come on, it's Brad Pitt and George Clooney, so they're just delightful together, and they clearly it just feels like they made this movie because they just felt like doing a really fun thing together, and it's super fun. Highly recommend.
My recommendation is a new podcast called How to Do Everything. Now, you might think, new podcast, Jamie. No. I listened to that podcast a long time ago. I've heard of that podcast. Well, yes, this is a podcast that existed 10 years ago. It is gone from the internet. Its feeds are gone. You cannot get to old episodes anymore. But the two hosts, Mike and Ian, they have now restarted it. It's just started. It's an NPR podcast.
Cool.
They have people call in with questions for them, how to do things, or just questions about stuff, and then they go out and try to figure it out. And it's very funny, but you also learn things.
Neat.
And there's a little bit of lore related to this podcast, because I don't know if this podcast would exist without that podcast in its original form.
Fair enough.
Because back in its original form, I was on it. This was over 10 years ago. And
it was 22 years ago, and the podcast crashed into a planet.
I went on How to Do Everything to ask how to watch Star Trek, because I had never seen any Star Trek. They got one Jonathan Frakes to come on and give me advice for how to watch Star Trek. And he gave bad advice. His advice was start at the beginning. Even though I had never seen any Star Trek, I suspected it was bad advice. I suspected start at the beginning was bad advice. But the thing is, when Jonathan Frakes tells you to do something, you do it. And Jonathan Frakes told me to start at the beginning. So I went back to original season, to episode 1, and I started at the beginning. And I made it a good 4 or 5 episodes in until I got to the Muds Women episode, when I was like, you know what? Maybe this show's not for me. And I stopped watching it for many years.
Oh, Jonathan Frakes.
Anyways, that's the lore, but How to Do Everything is back. And even though you cannot listen to the episode that I was on of it back in the day, so every other week they have new episodes, and then every other week in between those, they are actually replaying old episodes from the original version of the podcast. So eventually, maybe they will play the episode that I was on.
All right. Very cool.
And that's the episode. Thanks for listening. Next episode, Maria will be watching the episode Detained.
And you know it's going to suck, because that's just my luck.
Special thanks to K.O. Myers at Particulate Media for sound assistance, to our friend David for our beautiful cover art, and to John Stephen King for being the voice of our computer. If you liked the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast app of choice, and tell your friends about it. We would really appreciate it. You can follow us on Facebook or on Instagram with @EnterpriseSplaining, and on Blue Sky @EnterpriseSplain. You can also email us any comments or questions, such as, what hologram would you like to be stuck with on a planet for 22 years? To enterprisesplaining@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you want to support this podcast, you can find us at Buy Me a Coffee as Enterprise Splaining. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Computer and programs.
Here I am. I'm back.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.